Well, nice to have you with us on a Tuesday afternoon on this 6th day of March, the year 2018. Hi, everybody. Yours truly, Christopher Russo. Broadcast day here on the great Sirius XM 82. Good start by Danny Kenley, bailing everybody out and doing a nice job here today with his talk show. We now have Kenley in, so we might make a trade. I gave them Kenley. I want Bill back. Give him Eddie. Eddie stinks. Let me get Bill in here, and we'll put the Powerhouse program back together again. Let Eddie labor with Tori. Can't stand him, but let Eddie thinks he knows talk shows, so let him labor with Tori. Tori doesn't like Eddie, doesn't tell him that, tells me. Eddie can't stand Tori, doesn't tell him that, tells me. I'm the middleman, so I know I'll tell everybody. So we'll put Eddie with Tori again, and they can put people to sleep, and Kenley can galvanize them, and then Billy and I will be the lockdown deal at 3 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. How you doing on a busy afternoon? As he talked to you about the world of sports on this Tuesday edition here of Mad Dog Unleashed. Lots of Jay Billis today, a little later on. We'll do a little college basketball with Jay. Some things going on as far as the tournament is concerned. The selection show on Sunday, a change or two there, too. Or the teams have an opportunity now. Cleveland State with 12 wins, teams like that trying to get into the tournament. We'll keep an eye on it as we move it along on this busy day. We have, obviously, the NBA today. I want to get to Van Gundy's comment about the Rockets. We'll do that. In the course of the afternoon, we'll try to get that in the mix here today, too. Cousins, I guess they got $91 million guaranteed from Minnesota. Again, I don't know why Minnesota is so, tripping over themselves, delirious with the idea that they want to bring Kirk Cousins in. I cannot understand it for a guy who has never in his life won a big game. Never, ever has he won a big game. Terrible 2 years ago against the Giants. Terrible 2 years ago against Carolina. Awful against the Packers. This is a guy that has never tripped over himself, getting himself out of harm's way his whole career. I just don't understand the want from Minnesota. They just to get to a championship. They didn't lose the championship game because of Case Keenum, but somehow they want Cousins, which I don't quite figure it out. But I will see if he decides to go there. A lot of pressure on him if he goes to Minnesota, because obviously the Vikings need to make that next step, and I guess they feel Cousins can be it. To me, he's a little better than Bradford. I just don't see the big love for Kirk Cousins. We'll see what the Jets do. We have that going on here today as well. And we got a little baseball, which is where I want to begin for a minute or two, and then we'll get off it, and we'll get your calls in on it if we have some, and then we'll turn our attention to some other things. I am still puzzled by the reaction by these players. Latest now is Hosmer. Kenley Jansen, the fan rags, went on and on and on about the fact nobody's trying to win in the sport. Hosmer can't understand why none of his buddies, Moustakas, read into that. Can't get a contract in baseball with the free agent scenario. These players are so delirious. Let's take them one at a time. First off, Jansen said there's essentially 6 teams that have a chance to win a championship, maybe 7. He's accurate on that. Nobody's going to argue there because obviously we know who those teams are. The Nationals, the Cubs, the Dodgers, Houston is 4, the Indians are 5, and then the 2 in the American League East. So I don't think anybody is going to go crazy with that. And then you throw about 5 or 6 other teams on that next tier where if everything broke great, they could be dangerous. And that would be the Angels, that would be the Mets, that would be the Giants, maybe Colorado and Arizona. That kind of, maybe if you really wanted to push it, you can say the Twins, Brewers. I mean, there's about 6 or 7 in that next level, and then everybody else, is where they are. Some are on the verge of making some headway, the Phillies. Others are spinning their wheels, the Reds. So take your pick on how you want to evaluate this. But Jansen, among other things today, said that there's only 3 or 4 teams in the National League who are trying to win and who have done anything in the offseason that is prepared them to have a winning season in 2018. And that is so outlandish. I don't even know how to comment on that. He said there's only one NL East team trying to win. Well, what did he forget about the fact that the Mets brought 4 players in the offseason? A third baseman, a relief pitcher, a starting pitcher, and an outfielder in Bruce, the kid from Milwaukee, the reliever. Throw in Clint Frazier and, of course, Jason Vargas. The Phillies brought Santana in. So, I mean, they obviously tried to make a competitive move. Milwaukee brought Kane in. Milwaukee also brought Yelich in. The Cardinals always try to win. San Francisco, McCutchen and Longoria. The Diamondbacks haven't been, they didn't get J.D. Martinez, but they did sign Greinke a couple of years ago for $250 million. And then, of course, you got San Diego that sign Hosmer. I mean, I find it very, very hard to believe that these players are that lost on these clubs in the National League. I mean, he went on and on and on today, Jansen. I can read you the quotes if you want me to read it. He can't believe that why Carlos Gonzalez has not gotten a contract offer. Well, how do we know he hasn't gotten a contract offer? He has not signed yet, but we don't know if he's gotten a contract offer. Just because you haven't signed doesn't mean you haven't gotten an offer. It may not be an offer that you like, but that still means you may have gotten an offer. And, the Gonzaleses, the Moustakas, who Hosmer, screamed and yelled about, the players want it both ways. They want to be on a winning team, and they want the most money, and they want to have choices, and instead of worrying about omelets and about whether they had spring training breakfast, which is what they made a big deal about in their last labor negotiation, they should have been, and whether they had, they could have the whole road to themselves on a team bus in spring training, which is something else they argued about. What they should have been more concerned about is the luxury tax number and the international pool money and slotting and all those things. And compensation. That's what they should have been more interested in. But Tony Clark, who is not a lawyer, got destroyed by the front office of Major League Baseball that's got nothing but Harvard graduates running it. Whether it's Hallam, whether it's Manfred, whoever it might be. And Clark's a baseball player. Listen, nice guy, great guy. But he's not a lawyer. Right? He played baseball, and a good one. He's not a lawyer. And in the old days, the Players Association had lawyers running it. Marvin Miller was a lawyer. Donald Fear was a lawyer. Michael Weiner was a lawyer. Gene Orza was a lawyer. These guys, Tony Clark's not a lawyer. And he's getting hammered by guys who are, and who are smarter than him. That's the bottom line. You can sit there and say anything you want. That's the issue. And the idea that Jansen says there's only 3 or 4 teams trying to win, that is a bunch of nonsense. San Diego signed Hosmer. They gave him $140 million. Richest contract in history of the franchise. They gave him $140 million. The Giants brought Longoria in, making $70 more million. McCutchen, who's making $15 million. They spent a ton of money trying to get better. San Francisco. What, the Giants don't want to win with 40-something, 400 consecutive sellouts? That's ridiculous. The Rockies brought Davis in, Brian Shaw in. Spent well over $100 million on relief pitchers. What, the Rockies? What, because they didn't sign Carlos Gonzalez, they don't want to win? That's nonsense. It's nonsense. Cardinals traded for Azuma, try to get Stanton. The Brewers, Kane and Yelich, aforementioned. I mean, my God, the Angels, what'd they do? Ohtani, Kinsler, the kid from the Reds, Justin Upton. I mean, I tell you, these players, one ear and out the other when they talk. The Twins brought a bunch of relievers in, Addison Reed and Rodney. The Yankees and the Red Sox do what they do. I mean, I tell you, these players, they are so out of the loop, it drives you absolutely crazy. So I got to listen to Kenley Jansen, who, by the way, in case anybody forgot, we all have killed Darvish for the World Series. Why do we kill Jansen? What, as I said on TV today, you know what we should do at Jansen? They should have on a loop in Glendale and at Dodger Stadium the run in the 8th and the homer he gave up to Gonzalez in the 9th in Game 2, which really set the bad trend for L.A. And then in Game 5, when he gave up all those hits and the Bregman hit to win Game 5 at 2 games apiece. We should circulate that on a loop at Dodger Stadium. So every time the Dodgers go into the home team clubhouse, they see Jansen giving it up in the World Series. And I'm a Jansen fan. Always have said it. But that's what we should say. Instead of worrying about getting better and helping the Dodgers win a championship, which he did not do last year in the World Series. Jansen's sitting there trying to comment on what the Miami Marlins are doing. And the Miami Marlins are a franchise right now, if you look at it, lost $50 million last year. The model of success was not there. Their revenue was not nearly as much as their spending. And so they changed the way they were doing business. which was a smart thing to do. The way they went about it, maybe you can argue, but it was a smart thing to do. Stanton, Yelich, Ozuna, try something different. They won 70-something games last year. Nobody went to the ballpark. It was a ghost town in that place. It's a disaster. Nobody even went when they had that ceremony for Jose Fernandez. A couple of years ago, the place was empty. Empty! On that September night against the Mets. Empty! Nobody cares about baseball in that market. And that's baseball's fault for putting a team there. But that's what the Derek Jeter and the Bruce Shermans had to deal with. So as a result, they got to change the structure of the team. What do you want them to do? Spend money on who? And I guess Jansen's annoyed that the Phillies, have not tried to compete with the Nationals. Well, what pitcher is out there right now in baseball that the Phillies could get that could make them be the favorite in the NL East? They could bring Cobb, Lynn, Darvish, and Arrieta in. All of them. And they still wouldn't beat the Nationals in the division. They could sign them all. Makes no difference. They're all number 3 starters. They could sign, or 2 starters. They could sign all of them. They still would not win. Because they have Scherzer and Strasburg. They still want to win. So what do you want the Phillies to do? Sign an old fart like Arrieta? Give him $180 million? Let him go 11-10 and still lose the division by 30 games? That's how you run the ball club? That is absurd. Folks, the pendulum goes in opposite directions. Sometimes it works for you. Sometimes it works against you. And I'm going to give you the perfect example. You're listening to him. When I left FAN, this company needed me. They thought they couldn't make it easy. I had to say yes. Great station is you do this, do that. Had to say yes. 5 years up. Long labor of love. All of a sudden, Chris Russo wasn't as hot anymore. Wasn't as hot anymore. What did they do? They cut my you-know-what off. That's what they did. They cut the legs out from under me. That's business. Did Jimmy scream and yell about it? You know what I did? I ran on the MLB network. That's what I did. How to make the difference up somewhere. That's how it works. Some days you hit it at the right time or years, and some years you don't. It just so happens the Carlos Gonzalez's, and I love Mark Reynolds. I'm a big fan now. The Mark Reynoldses of the world, the Greg Collins of the world, the Jake Arrietas of the world, the Alex Cobbs of the world. These are pretty decent players, not great. And now the pendulum went the other way. Live with it. Live with it. 16 after the hour, we continue. Mad Dog on.